And now millions of Americans are now without unemployment. It appears President Trump did not sign the $2.3 trillion government funding and coronavirus relief package, causing the benefits to lapse overnight. Without a signature, that means an end to weekly payments for unemployed gig workers, as well as self-employed people whose businesses have stalled. Last week, the president threatened to veto the COVID relief bill, arguing that the $600 direct payments to Americans were too low. Now, without the bill signed, the government could shut down at 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday. Well, for millions of Americans, the economic impact of the pandemic has been devastating. They consider federal assistance a lifeline. And now millions worry about what lies ahead as Congress and the president remain deadlocked over COVID relief legislation. Garrett Hake this morning continues our coverage.
Across a pandemic-ravaged nation, reality sinking in. Help from Washington isn't on the way. Grandmother Nicole Akers in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, is staring down her last week of unemployment.
The panic mode has now kicked in. You know, my unemployment is not a whole, it's not a heck of a lot, but it's gotten us by. But this now is going to be a real struggle.
2 federal unemployment insurance programs that would have been extended in the relief bill now expire, cutting benefits for some 12 million Americans. Millions more could be put out of their homes in January. The federal eviction moratorium is the next major program to expire on New Year's Eve, if the president doesn't act. Nicole is watching that deadline, too.
Come January, I probably won't be able to make my rent payment.
On the president's desk, the bipartisan bill his administration helped negotiate, which he now refuses to sign, tweeting, quote, "I simply want to get our great people $2,000 rather than the measly $600 that is now in the bill," and complaining about pork, actually foreign aid spending requested in the White House's budget. Trump ally Lindsey Graham tweeting after Christmas golf with the president that Mr. Trump is more determined than ever to get the $2,000 direct payments, which he calls reasonable. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has made no public comment on the president's demand. President Trump never left his Mar-a-Lago resort tweeting about the election results, calling the Supreme Court incompetent and weak, and his successor a fake president. That successor, President-elect Joe Biden, issuing a lengthy statement on the COVID relief bill, which reads in part, "This bill is critical. It needs to be signed into law now."